Welcome back to the Friday Matinee on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. I'm George.
I'm T. Well, there we are.
I feel like we're a band that kind of took like a little teeny hiatus and like went and did a couple of solo projects.
Right,
and came
now
back
the
together.
band is back together.
The band is back
Here
together. I was saying it's like zygote day here, you know.
Yeah, triplets and twins.
Duos and triplets. We had our previous guest was a triplet. We have our guest now is a twin, as is our illustrious Adria, who is sitting in and kind of watching what's going on here. Is our video intern.
She's very intense about it.
She is.
Yes.
Well, we're not sure.
We're moving on to another platform, another artist platform with an author. So first, our guest from.
We go way back.
Yeah, it hurts too.
Yes, yes.
Getting back up.
And Phil and I met each other actually at Canyon Theater Guild in the late 90s.
Late 90s,
so
yeah.
A lot of talent goes through those doors.
And speaking of tap dancing, the guy's
you're
a
tap
master.
Dancer?
Yes,
Guy's a
ma'am.
master.
we're
Phil
gonna
also
ask some tricky questions and see you tap dance.
Phil also grew up in show business, of course, and then has also been a teacher and everything else. But in this case, this is a book I didn't realize you knew how to write. Well, I should say you would have to know something, but in this case.
Yeah, well, these days you just dictate it to your phone and
there it is.
No, I'm kidding.
There's an app for that. Book writer.
I actually did type.
Wow.
Yeah.
But and I remember you like on Facebook seeing X amount of words that I had no clue what you were writing, because a lot of people do that and they say, hey, I'm writing a book, and then you never hear anything or whatever.
Yeah.
In this case, you really put it to task. Now, this is a book called "It's Not Hard to Learn the Bard." Now, this is a guide on how to get around the San Francisco subway system. Am I right?
Okay.
I've been waiting all week.
Yeah.
I've been waiting all week to
tell that joke. Okay, and Philip, forgive me. How do you say your last name? We haven't.
Schwadron. Sorry.
We haven't properly introduced you.
No, hi, I'm Phil Schwadron. I'm the author of the book.
There we go.
It's not hard to learn the Bard, and of course, the Bard refers to
Shakespeare.
Billy Shakespeare. Now, for a lot of people, and I tell everyone who's afraid of Shakespeare to maybe go and listen to Shakespeare. I took my daughter. We went to the Shakespeare Festival up in Oregon, and she had said to me, "Mommy, for the first 10 minutes, my brain was like shorting out because it's hard to take a few moments, and then all of a sudden you realize you're in it to win it, and you're following the story, and you're catching the jokes, and Shakespeare was a funny guy.
Oh yeah.
And so it's not
that
hard.
Hamlet just kills me every single time.
Well, the hardest thing about it is his reputation. The reputation that's been going around. In fact, that's one of the reasons I wrote the book. Is I was given the class. I teach at the Orange County School of the Arts, and I've been teaching the Shakespeare Appreciation class for about 4 years now, and the students, they all said to me the first day, "Oh my God, I got to learn this nonsense." And I said, "Guys, you got to trust me.
You got to go with it."
I said, it seems like nonsense because the fear is, frankly, I'm not going to get it. Not only that, but the other problem with what we think is going on in these plays is that these characters are somehow not us.
Oh, and they're so relatable.
That because they speak fancy, that they are just somehow more sophisticated and deeper than human beings. And no, in fact, it's so the opposite.
It's so the opposite.
Yeah.
Every person you've ever known, have met, or will meet is on the stage, is in his plays, and they are so beautifully relatable. Yeah. Did you come to it just naturally where you went, yeah, I love this, or did you have the same thing your students had?
Yeah. Well, that's. I hate to say this, but one of the reasons I wanted to write the book was to guide the teachers as well as the students. When I was at Orange County, I won't say who, because one of the teachers, one of the actual 9th grade teachers, said to me, sent me an email saying, "Hey Phil, I know you're good at this stuff, and I just moved up to 9th grade. I got to teach this Romeo and Juliet. Can you help me out?" And I thought, oh boy, where else is this going on? Where the teachers are just as intimidated by what we're doing as the students are, and of course the students, 9th, 10th grade, they'll smell fear. So
it's like a liquid eyeliner. It just knows you're afraid.
And so they will react accordingly and tune out, or just not try as hard. So my first step in teaching it, and certainly with the book, is to say I'm a fan of this stuff. Now, how did I become a fan? Yes, when I was in 10th grade myself, we did Julius Caesar in my English, in our literature class, and the kids are reading it out loud. Now, I can tell you for a fact, reading Shakespeare at all is a nightmare.
Yeah, it'll warp your brain.
Even for people who have done it for years, Shakespeare was meant to be listened to and spoken, not read and analyzed about, the nuances of the assonance. That kind of stuff kind of takes away from what he was writing about, which was these guys are feeling it from the gut to a point where they got to speak it.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's got to come from you, like you wrote it, like you just made it up. So as a 10th grader, here you are, you're in class, they're reading Julius Caesar, and you want to tear your hair out.
Yeah, I just want to get over with. And sure, when I'm reading it, I had already done Broadway, and I was a professional actor, and so I was.
By the 10th grade?
Yeah, I was 13 when I did.
Wait,
Broadway.
now I want that story first.
Oh
What?
My God. Well, we do have a half hour.
Yeah.
It's a very short book. So I started out as a working actor as a kid, and the first professional show I did was I was 12 in a dinner theater in upstate New York, and within a year after that, I was in a Broadway show.
What was the first show you did?
Oliver.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then what was the Broadway show?
It was called On Your Toes. It was
yay!
Rodgers and Hart musical that had been revived in '83.
Now you didn't go by yourself. Who was the pushing that cart? Did you have an aunt or a grandma or a relative? Who did that?
I had a fan base. My mother, my grandmother, my aunt.
Come on, we're going to New York. You're going to do a show.
Yeah. Well, what happened was we started out doing local theater, and my twin brother and I were both doing it, and it was Jewish Community Center or somewhere locally in New Jersey where I grew up, Atlantic City, and my mother noticed we were getting into it and that we had some talent, and even at 7 or 8 years old.
And to keep you off the streets,
and
let's keep
to
them
keep
in
us
the
off the
theater.
streets, she said, "Why don't we get you some singing lessons, some dancing lessons, and some piano lessons?" And so we were involved in that life early on. We were meeting kids who were along those same lines. And there was a little kids talent show in Atlantic City on the boardwalk. We did that every Sunday for a while. And we were just getting better at it. And so manager showed up on the scene, and we auditioned for this manager, and we were with her for 20 years. And so it just kind of snowballed. And at 13, here we are in New York opening a Broadway show at what's now the, what's his name? That great playwright who wrote Cycle of Black America in the 20s. What's his name?
You're looking at me like a...
No, I know who you mean, but his name's going to...
It just blanked, and I even did his show in college.
And he's one of the most phenomenal writers.
Yes.
It'll come to me in a moment.
But anyway, that's the theater. It used to be the Virginia Theater. It's now his theater.
Okay, and so now here you go back to school, 10th grader. Yeah, I've been on Broadway, and you chuckleheads are going to read Julius Caesar, and I just want to take you out in the parking lot. And so but you loved Shakespeare by this point?
No. I was as bored as they were.
Oh, okay. Broadway notwithstanding, I'm bored.
And what turned it around was actually, I was in my 30s, and right here in the Santa Cruz Valley, I was substitute teaching. I'd stopped acting pretty much. I should say it stopped asking me to act. And so I was teaching at this point. I was doing a substitute teaching job, and it was a 9th grade class, and I was doing Romeo and Juliet for the students. And I knew, I can remember like it was yesterday, I had this epiphany that, boy, I get this stuff, and I'm really good at explaining it, and the kids are responding. A week later, I'm at Hart High doing Macbeth, substitute teaching again, I'm having the same issue. Boy, this is good. Almost a year after that, I got on the board of directors at the Canyon Theater Guild, and we had a slot open because our old late great Mike Levine could not get Streetcar up and running.
He always tried.
He always tried. So we had a slot opened up in the spring, and I said, I got an idea. Let's do Midsummer Night's Dream.
That's right. That was 2001.
That was 2000.
It's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
One of my, I love that.
Well, we put it up 2001, but this meeting happened in 2000.
It was right when when it opened.
We had down
the street.
We didn't have to worry about rights. We didn't have to worry about anything. It's public domain work. So it was like, boom, we got it. And we got it done. I was all excited about it because the CTG had never done Shakespeare before.
That's a good one to start with.
So, and it's a good one to start with.
It's delicious.
And it's as far as his works go, it's an easy production. It's nothing complicated or emotionally heavy. That was it. I got into grad school the following year, and we did at Cal Arts here in town, and we had 3 years. It was very focused on Shakespeare, so I came out more of an expert than I thought I would ever be on his works, and I had been familiar all of a sudden with all 37 of his plays, and I started
So you
teaching.
felt like you had a formula to be able to help other people distill it down and make it palatable.
And I know, and I actually have this in the book, teenagers are the perfect audience for Shakespeare because they're not worried about emotionalism. They're not afraid to feel, and that's where they live. That's where they thrive. So this stuff, which is why in the 90s they had all those movies that came out, 10 Things I Hate About You, and She's the Man. They had these films that were clearly Shakespeare plots, and they all took place in high school. Now Petruchio and Caterina are not high school age. Othello is not in high school, but the movies are set there because that's the only place we in America are allowed to be emotional.
I always say kids walk around like they have an emotional sunburn. Don't touch me, don't reach me, but yet they're so open and so just teeming with they're overflowing with it, and they're too sensitive.
Even the "don't touch me" is an open emotion.
Yeah, it's
thing.
they're too sensitive almost.
Yeah.
So the book came about. You sat down, you realized you were an expert. Again, it's not hard to learn The Bard. It's a guide to introducing Shakespeare to teenagers. You can find it on Amazon.com. So let's say you're not a teenager and you say, I don't want to be intimidated by Shakespeare, and I probably should know this.
Yeah.
It's good for everybody, isn't it?
It's good for everybody. I certainly wrote it. The basic idea is I wrote it. If one day I'll never teach again, and when I was telling my students this about moving on or going somewhere else, and she goes, well, what if I never take your class? I said, well, you can now. It's the book. The book is basically the class put together, and it's not like it's a class that only teenagers can take. A class is a class. So it's with that in mind. I know there are adults who can get behind what I'm doing because they're in the same boat of this stuff's too intimidating. I don't get it, but when you get, this is going to sound blasphemous, I know that, and I read this in the book too. Drop the language out of the equation. Forget the language. The language is scary, but the plots are easy, right? And you find how Romeo and Juliet. What's it really about? Two teenagers trying to have sex without the parents finding out. That's it. Everything else is just what I call icing on the cake. It's just icing. The cake is these two kids who are told no by their parents, and they basically tell the parents, "Forget it. We're gonna do this behind your back if you don't want our permission."
And then it's all tragic and terrible.
And what happens there is all just oops.
Right,
The mail doesn't get through. Romeo thinks that she's actually dead. She knows.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, for those who are not familiar with the play.
I think 400 years is enough time.
People have probably heard it.
It's like you give a couple months before you spoil something out on social media if it's a TV show or something. I think 400 years is enough time.
It's probably enough time.
Well, if they don't know anything about it, we can assume she dies in the beginning.
There you go.
Right, so I'm not giving anything away.
Now, of all of the Shakespeare works, you're not supposed to have favorites, just like children, but do you have a favorite? Was there one where, okay, you liked it, and then you said, oh my gosh, this is the one that got me?
Yeah, it's kind of like ice cream. It keeps changing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. At the moment, it's Measure for Measure.
Okay.
Because it's sex and politics.
What was the one with Julius Caesar? When you finally got Julius Caesar in high school, by the end of it, did you say, "Oh, I really love this," or what? Did you have to wait a while before?
Yeah, I would say I was in my late 20s, early 30s before I had any.
And what was the one that got you then?
It was that class.
It was the class that did it, but there was
teaching.
no work of Shakespeare that
No.
you just said, "This story resonates with me."
Once I knew I had a knack for this stuff, once I knew I wanted to explore it, all the plays were fair game, and I loved them all.
That's nice. That's nice.
And like my favorites keep changing. I mean, I love the history plays. I love Richard III. I love Henry V. I love Henry IV, parts 1 and 2. I started. I really got into his later plays, which were what they call the romance plays, which basically his tragedies with happy endings. I think, and I believe this
like
about
every
him.
romance.
Yeah, I believe this about him. I guarantee you he was apologizing at the end of his career for some of the dead bodies from the beginning of his career.
Had to sweep up a little bit.
He just said, it doesn't have to be this way, and I think this is a guy who was always trying to make a better play.
Do you feel as an actor there's one or two characters that you've not yet played that, oh, this is a dream, I want to do this particular role?
Well, I've since I moved out of town, it's a shame because Mike Davies and I, who's a local at the Canyon Theater, was talking about me doing Shylock from Merchant of Venice, and I'm just about the right age now. I'm 47, so but the odds of us working together with me in Orange County are slim. But yeah, I'd love to.
Metrolink station, because it drops off right there.
That's right.
Right there.
Okay.
Right across the street.
If the book sells, I'll have lots of free time to take the train.
Sure.
So yeah, I'd love to do Shylock. I'd love to play the chorus in Henry V. He's a character who basically just shows up to address the audience and doesn't do anything else. But it's so much.
Breaks the fourth wall and
breaks fourth wall. He tells, and what he says basically is, "Hey, listen, I know we're talking about having horses on stage. You're not going to see any. I'm really sorry. Use your imagination and just go with us on this." That's really what he says, and it's just a lot of fun to play.
Like vaudeville at that point, where he pops in.
But it's so. I mean, I know it sounds kind of silly to say, but it's so beautifully written.
Yeah.
that I'd love to play the chorus.
Most of his material, and I always feel like there is that dusting off the pages and telling people, no, this could be happening today. There are so many works of Shakespeare that you just can't think of it in another time period, because everything about it, any of the political corruption or the family dramas, it's all
Nothing
current.
has changed in 400 years. Nothing has changed in 1,000 years.
And he's written on every single topic. If you want to know how not to behave, a lot of it can be found in the works of Shakespeare.
In fact, I take sections of the book and I break down into subject matters that teenagers are already talking about. We've got sexism, racism. It's all Shakespeare used these
Classes.
ideas.
He had all of them. Okay, the back of the book. Again, this is It's Not Hard to Learn the Bard, a guide to introducing Shakespeare to teenagers, and it's available on Amazon.com.
The author, Philip Schwadron. And the back of the book, William Shakespeare has withstood the test of time, but for 400 years he's done it despite each succeeding generation resisting his work as either too complicated, too boring, or too old. I love that your whole idea of this was to share as a teacher, presenting the material in the most unintimidating fashion to students. And even though you wrote the book for teenagers, you give people an opportunity to learn the only two important parts, the body, the head, and the heart, because everything else is gravy. It's like the stories. But I want to talk about the book itself, because looking through it's 103 pages, including all the acknowledgments and everything in the back.
Yes.
It looks like something, and it's written straight through, so it's not like chapter by chapter. It's almost like a primer or something like that.
Yeah.
And the idea is this, that it's digestible within half a day or within a day, or just to be able to get it, and after that it's like and then you're gonna so that's fascinating. I want to talk a little bit about, so in other words, if you get this book, when you get this book, let me get the assumptive close here.
Philip can take the train back and forth.
Available at Amazon.com. By the way, the book titled It's Not Hard to Learn the Bard, a guide to introducing Shakespeare to teenagers by Philip Schwadron. When you read the book, is this, you get enough of an understanding you're going to want to start digesting more Shakespeare, or is it just so that if case, or all right, my friend is going to be in a Richard III or whatever, and all right, now I can sit through it type thing. Is there's a little something for everybody, perhaps?
That's good. That's kind of what I tell my students on the first day is my goal.
Because not everybody is going to be an actor, but there are times when, like, you're going to even have to understand Shakespeare going into college and taking like English lit. They're going to touch on that and other types of literature.
Yeah. So I tell the students on the first day, my goal in the class is not to make you all fans or even take you any further than this class on your experience with Shakespeare. My goal is to get you to a point where if you go see a production, you can follow it. Every semester, somebody gets hooked. And others, as soon as it's done, off they go. But in some cases, some of them sent me messages that are in the back of the book. Actually, I put a few in there where they said, "Yeah, I'm really into it now. I wasn't then, but thanks to you, I'm at least aware of the 37 titles. Besides just the basic 5 everybody knows."
And it is what you say. If you know the story and you kind of you can boil it down to the basic components, even when you get in the theater seat. If you just sort of have an idea, give yourself the first few minutes to get past the language, because before you know it, you start hearing in Shakespeare. You'll find yourself leaving the theater speaking in Shakespeare. Your brain's going to want to hear it. It's like a magic trick.
Yeah, well,
that's why he's lasted.
You've heard the phrase Iambic Pentameter, and everyone rolls their eyes when they hear the phrase. But what makes it such a great tool for Shakespeare, in my opinion, makes him a 16th century rap artist.
Yes, he is.
Because he writes in rhythm, and we memorize lyrics in rhythm because they're in rhythm. And the iambic, if you break it down, is a unstressed stressed, meaning it's a heartbeat. It goes ba-bum, ba-bum, ba-bum. And it just makes you, it's a very, like you said, human. It's a very human sound that humans get. And as a former actor, Shakespeare was a former actor, and may actually have been an actor all the way through his career. The story goes that he probably played Prospero, his last play, The Tempest, and that famous closing monologue was probably him saying goodbye. But they can't, as usual. There's no records of anything on this
Of course
guy.
not.
We can't
Yes.
prove anything at all. But anyway, but it's a very human sound, the pentameter, and it really helps people memorize. And as a former actor, he knew I need to get my actors to memorize quick. Here's a great way to do it, and it works.
Well, I want to talk about writing the book real quick. How long did it take you to actually write it?
I give two answers: 5
Okay.
weeks, and the other answer is 20 years and 5 weeks.
Got it.
20 years and 5 weeks.
Yeah, from the moment
The seed was there.
the seed was, well, I could say the seed started. Again, I was substitute teaching around in the late 90s. Shakespeare in Love came out around that time, and that film. I can't say enough about that film. And I show that film. I have to cut a few scenes, but I show that film to my students, and 20 years. It's almost 20 years later, and it still gets a reaction out of them. It holds up. Holds up
Nice.
nicely, and that film, along with that epiphany I had substitute teaching that class with Romeo and Juliet, it started from there. So it's 20 years and 5 weeks.
Congratulations on the book. I hope a lot of people will pick that up. Again, it's available on Amazon.com. And the theater, was it by chance Langston Hughes theater? Was that not the writer?
No, he was a poet from
the poet, different
Harlem,
poet.
Harlem Renaissance.
Now I want to know the name of the theater.
know,
We'll
it's
have to
driving me
look that up.
Boy, oh
fact,
boy.
we're going
3
to-
o'clock in the morning. It's
Right,
gonna
it's
happen.
going to pop in.
We have this wonderful
But
technology.
but
right
it's
in
not
front of us.
hard to learn the bard. George, have you ever thought about doing a Shakespeare play, or has
I've done them.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those types that I can kind of I maybe I need to either take it or leave it. It's never been like something as an actor that I've really like I've got to play Hamlet or anything like that. Now, that being said, maybe I'm just
book
not
might-
getting
yeah,
it.
maybe
Because
the
you're
book will
right.
get
I
ya.
know the five.
Same one we all know.
And I always think, okay, Richard. Okay, that's right. There was a Henry IV Annefit. That's right. But I mean, I did a little bit English lit, and then I had to do one. I think for a college theater class, like but that's as far as it went.
I just got a text from my brother, my twin brother, August Wilson, Utah.
Thank you.
Ding 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 ding.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother, for listening.
All
Thank
right.
you, Stephen.
Well, what's
Shout out
he
to my
do?
brother.
Does he? What's the twin do? Does he have the same?
Stephen and I actually.
Because you acted as kids.
We
so
acted as kids. We acted as we were.
They're in a band too.
We're in a musical group, and we write songs together and perform in this band called the Epoxy Boggarts.
Nice.
is
So
a-
can we follow you on social media, or how do we know when you're
Yes.
performing? Give us that info.
Well, we perform every year at the Southern California Renaissance Fair
Nice.
in full costume, but it's all like bar songs and drinking
love that.
songs. And
Oh,
There's
it's all
like
good.
17
Some of the
million
best
people in the
hymns.
band. I think it's awesome.
Some of the best church hymns, including our own Star Spangled Banner. But it's just so you
Started
know.
off as
Yeah,
Amazing
started off as a
Grace.
bar song. So, yeah, you guys.
So Poxy Boggards, POXYBOGGARDS, Poxy Boggards.
done.
You're welcome. Every now and then. I mean, I know this is AM radio, but I can spell. SPEL.
Yes.
Philip Schwadron, it's always a pleasure. It's a good opportunity to bring you up here and talk about this. It's not hard to learn the Bard, a guide to introducing Shakespeare to teenagers. And I would say anybody,
Really anybody.
who wants to learn just like the basics about Shakespeare
be
and be able to
intimidated.
enjoy it. Philip Schwadron, available at Amazon.com. Phil, pleasure to see you. I know
to
we
see you,
don't get
George.
out too much to see each other very often, so good to see your face again.
Nice to meet you.
Same to you.
We will be back with a wrap up right after this. This is your hometown
gonna
station,
wrap.
AM 1220 KHTS.
Welcome back to the Friday Matinee, hearing hometown station AM 1220 KHTS. I am T.
I'm George.
And we had a nice time with two different venues, with a writer and with a singer-songwriter. And then at the end, for me to find
One
out
of the
that
fans just shows up.
one of the fans showed
drops
up
off.
and dropped off a CD of Philip Schwadron and his brother, which is
Poxy Boggards.
Poxy Boggards,
And
Boggards.
there's 17 people in that band. Now there's a lot of. I mean, it's a pretty big band. They're actually really good.
But PoxyBoggards.com, and it says
Not always suitable for all family members.
No,
just
but
to
it
let you
looks
know.
like it's kind of fun. Wish you were beer. So very, very, very fun. And then the young man who was here before,
Matthew
how
Smolsky.
very nice. He spent his birthday with us. The singer
Did
songwriter.
we find out how old he was? I meant to ask him.
18.
Wow.
18 today, and
Holy
he's been
moly.
writing for a long time. And again, I love that he brought 2 new songs with him. But if you get a chance, listen to Peter Pan and Wendy. I'm telling you, it just
Smolsky Music, either Twitter, Facebook, SoundCloud, or go to reverbnation.com/Matthew Smolsky.
And our author, Philip Schwadron, SCHWADRON, his book, It's Not Hard to Learn the Bard, available on Amazon.com.
And we have Adria with us, yet another twin. Adria is our videographer, or video editor, I should
Editor.
say, and videographer, because you shot the
Yeah, I shot a couple things.
the thing for what's her name again? Swimmer.
Oh, Abby Whitesell.
So you would know. and that was a really good thing. So you've been kind of hanging out in the mornings with me a little bit and kind of learning the ropes and hanging out here at KHTS. What do you think so far?
I mean, it's
Remember,
a lot.
the bosses are listening.
It's a lot to process just your first couple times coming in, but I've just been observing and trying to learn as fast as I can.
Everybody relatively nice?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, there's that. And then have you watched? Have you been in for drive time yet? Have you done some of that?
No, I haven't.
That's plate spinning at its finest, juggling.
She's been in the morning, but with
to
me,
sit-
but not in the afternoon.
Oh, well, drive time, yeah, in the morning.
yeah.
You've watched George do what he does. And that can be, it's like, wow, that's a fascinating thing. And he's really, I like watching you in the morning when you do what you do. Not that I like being awake at that hour and functioning, but I do like how animated you are.
Everybody
I don't know what time you get up, George, but I could never do you. I could
4:15.
never be that.
Every
I always
morning.
like the morning
Ugh.
shows.
I like morning. I don't want to do that in the morning.
Well, this has been fun. This has also been the Friday Matinee on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. Stick around for My Conscious Dad coming up next. And